So, Jeff, COVID actually has put a lot of pressure on business owners from not knowing how much money they have to not knowing how much business they have, not knowing how many employees are willing to come back, not knowing whether or not they can come back. This really, I think, has put a pressure on the need for sales. And when I think about that in the world that we live in today, and the fact that money is so important, I think about the commoditization of any product or service. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that now regarding that value. I know in the segment before we were talking about the value of a Honda as opposed to a Lamborghini. And I heard you with a very, very great example of what that means. But in the real world, in the real office, in the real, wee hours of the night or in the shower, what do you think that business owners are thinking about in terms of the commoditization and what they're charging and what they can charge and what they see for the future?
So I can't speak for every business owner, but I think that many of them are very concerned. And when business owners and salespeople get concerned about something like this, the first thing they tend to do is drop their price. I think that's a very bad idea. Now, again, I live in the real world and we have to be competitive, but we have to be able to clearly express to our clients, our prospects and future clients, hopefully, what makes us different. We have to know our own value and be able to clearly explain to someone in a way that they completely get it what makes us different, not necessarily what makes us better. I think it's reasonable for business owners to be concerned about the future. I think it's reasonable for them to be concerned about the prospect of doing business with people. It's harder to get in touch with people in some ways. And certainly it's reasonable to be concerned about the way they're doing business and consistently on a regular basis, taking a look at what am I doing? Is it still working? Do I need to try something else? But I always go to the foundational concepts. I always go back to the basics. In fact, when I work with companies year after year, eventually we get to the point where they'll ask me a question like, hey, Jeff, when are you going to teach my people the advanced stuff? And I always give them a wink and go, I'm going to teach them the advanced stuff when they start doing the foundational stuff that I've been teaching them for the last 3 years, because until you make them do it, there is no advanced stuff. And once you do that, we'll talk about the advanced stuff. And by the way, there really is no advanced stuff. I have no advanced training classes. It's always the foundation. And I always use this example. You know me well, so you might laugh at this, but I always use football as an example. They play a game once a week, typically, football players. Well, what do you think they're doing all week long? Sitting around eating bonbons? No, they're not. That's an old phrase. I feel old just for saying bonbon. That's candy for those of you who don't know the phrase. But they're not sitting around all day eating bonbons and watching TV. They're at practice every single day. And what are they practicing? The basics. They're practicing the foundational concepts that they learn in their training camp, and they practice it over and over and over. So that's what I would suggest business owners need to do. They need to go back to the basics. They need to have a prospecting plan in place. They need to implement that plan, and they need to measure it. They need to be managing their salespeople, because I'll tell you this, and I don't mean to insult any salespeople who are watching this now or at a later date, but you're babies. And by the way, I say that knowing I'm a salesperson too. I'm a baby too. I want my little handheld. I want the good leads. You know, if you've seen Glengarry Glen Ross, don't give me those Patel leads. I want the good leads. And when I close a deal, I want you to shoot off fireworks. And when I come back and tell you, hey, boss, I blew one or I lost it, I want you to put your arms around me and tell me it's going to be okay. You better be managing your salespeople effectively, because the only salesperson that does not need an effective leader, and I don't mean tough boss, I mean an effective leader, is a superstar. And sadly, most salespeople are not, well, sadly for everybody else, not for me, most salespeople are not superstars. That's actually very good for me. So for example, if you at your company wanted to hire me as a salesperson, the smartest thing you could do is say, hey, Jeff, I'm going to get out of your way and let you do what you do. Look, I often say I'm so good at selling that people pay me to teach them how to do it. So I am a superstar at sales. I was just born to do this. So the best thing you can do is get out of my way. But the average salesperson, the typical salesperson, hasn't been trained well, and is not managed well. And they're what I call a plodder, Plodder. They kind of plod along. There's no energy there. There's not very much energy, at least. And they're not doing the things that they need to do every day. And quote is kind of off in the distance. Maybe once or twice a year they'll hit it, but not usually. And that person needs an effective manager. So in any organization that's struggling right now, if your salespeople are reporting directly to you, the owner of the company, you're probably making a mistake unless you know how to manage salespeople. Hire an outsourced sales manager like me, or hire a professional sales manager internally, because your salespeople are the lifeblood of your business. You could have the greatest widget in the world, but unless you've got somebody who's going to sell it, unless you're doing internet marketing, you need some human beings, at least so far, to sell it until we get to the age where AI completely takes over. Companies and business owners need to understand is you better know who your customer is. You better develop an ideal client profile so that you know exactly what you're looking for, because if you haven't defined that, how are you going to find it? And then there needs to be a system for finding it, implement that, and do it consistently.
I love to do it consistently piece. Excellent.
Yeah, there's a lack of consistency with most salespeople, and also a lack of urgency. One of the things I tell my coaching clients is that I want you to work with focus, which means do one thing at a time. Multitasking is a myth. Anytime you try to do two things at once, both things are going to suffer. So focus on one thing at a time and then do it with velocity. Work as fast as you possibly can without being careless. And I always tell my coaching clients, work as if you're going to lose your job this Friday if you don't work with full speed and get something done. And most of us just don't. In sales, it's just the type of person that's attracted to sales. It's like, there's always tomorrow. Well, for most of us, there is a tomorrow, but you know what? The one thing you can't get back is time. You can almost always get back your health. You can almost always make more money, but you can't get back today. The half an hour that you and I are investing right now, we'll never get this back. The time that we didn't prospect this morning, we're never going to get that back either. So organizations and individual salespeople had better be working with urgency to find as many people as they possibly can who might have a need or a want for what they've got, and then do the sales process right. That's where I see a lot of problems, Ellen. Salespeople are typically not studiers. We typically don't go to college thinking, can't wait to graduate and go into sales. So we almost all fall into it by accident. Every time I go to my doctor, which thank the Lord is not that often. I'm a healthy guy. I go usually once a year, but he's always got books on his desk. He's my age. He's a highly experienced guy, but he's always got books on his desk. Any one of my lawyers, they've got books on their desks. Well, salespeople should too. Most studies show that the typical salesperson doesn't read a book, doesn't go to a seminar, workshop, doesn't watch a video. There's so much free information for salespeople. YouTube is filled with guys like me giving away information for free. LinkedIn is too. There's 1,000,001 highly qualified people. By the way, there's also people that you should not be paying attention to, but invest in yourself. Companies should invest in their team, and salespeople should invest in themselves if they want to take advantage of this horrible thing that we're going through, to make sure that they come out the other side and thrive.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. Such great input. I really always enjoy listening to you. It's always enlightening. And Jeff, I know you love music. I know it's in your heart. It seems like we all need a little more music these days. And I was wondering if you would share your favorite band and maybe the favorite song.
That's an easy one for me. I'm a child of the 60s and 70s. I still like all the classic bands, and I've seen every single one of them except the one that I love the most, and that is John, Paul, George, and Ringo, the Beatles. I adore them. They changed my life. I learned how to play guitar because of them. My sense of humor is kind of like theirs. When I had hair, I actually used to wear it that way. I was a true fan of the Beatles, and it's hard to find a song that I don't like, although there are a few. But my favorite song of all times is "I Saw Her Standing There." It's not challenging. It's not difficult. It's just this basic progression, and it rocks out. Their manager, Brian Epstein, called it a barn burner. Let's play the barn burner. So the Beatles, for me, they're everything. In fact, I do a program called Conversational Selling Skills, and at the end of it, there's a slide when I'm talking about objections and rebuttals, and it's a picture of the Beatles. And I always ask the audience, why do you think there's a picture of the Beatles in this training program? And they all go, we don't know. It's because they're the greatest freaking rock and roll band that ever lived.
You rock out, my friend. Thanks for coming today. So enjoyed having you.
Thank you so much, Ellen. It's always a pleasure.
You're watching Opportunity Calls with Ellen Volpe, presented by ABA, American Business Associates. To learn more about ABA, visit aba-ny.com.